So, politics. Politics is, there was an absolute monarchy at the time. So we have these ideas of the social contract. It was saying that the power comes from a social contract between the population and the sovereign, but actually we still lived in the 18th century under absolute monarchies. Under absolute monarchies in which they thought the power of the monarch, the power of the king, came from the will of God. So Enlightenment was a strong movement against absolute monarchy. Enlightenment was in favor of the separation of power, which is a principle introduced by a very important Enlightenment philosopher named Montesquieu, which we will go and we will see. And then individual rights, very important. Also, John Locke was a very important philosopher for the Enlightenment, very crucial philosopher for the Enlightenment, and so individual rights is very important. So we have individualism and we have individual rights. Equality, all men are born equal. At the time it was not like this. At the time you were born in an aristocratic family, so you were considered noble, you were considered that your blood was different from others. You were part of the church, you were part of the clergy, you were considered that you were different from the others, and all. So all men are equal. And then also it promoted free market. Free market. Government should allow market to grow. At the time it was not that you were born and you could choose your job. No, if your father was a carpenter, he was part of the corporation of the carpenters, and you were supposed to be a carpenter as well. It was, you were not free to choose your job. You were not free to start your own enterprise. The market was regulating according to the principle of the corporations, of the guilds. You belong to a guild, so there was not free market. So these are the political principles, okay? But what is important is all these political principles are considered to these philosophical principles. Right of reason, science, the principle of individualism, and the principle of progress. As we saw from Ivana's presentation, these come up. It's a long process that spent 3 centuries, and this is the fruit of humanism and Renaissance and how it built up ideas that were growing into Enlightenment. It was the effect of the Protestant Reformation which fostered individualism, by saying you should develop an individual relationship of yourself through God. It was the effect of the scientific revolution which made science a so powerful force of transformation. And all these principles came to be embodied in the idea of progress, the idea that you can make it better, and we can use politics to make the future better. Then, as you see, most important thinkers, some of them we have studied, John Locke, to this principle of individual rights. And we have, as I said, Hegel, everything is rational, is real, everything is real, is rational. Immanuel Kant, who invented the concept of critique, and he conceptualized Enlightenment as the shift of human beings from immaturity of society, from immaturity to maturity, because immaturity was the inability to understand reality without being guided from another, from the church, from superstition, absolute monarchy, divine will. So I say this immaturity is self-imposed. We have to go to enlightenment. We have to resolve the things. So then we have as we say, Isaac Newton, very important philosopher. Mary Wollstonecraft, who in 1792 wrote A Vindication of the Rights of Woman. Also this idea that all men are equal, and so also that there must be equality between men and women, was born as an effect of the Enlightenment, during the Enlightenment. So Mary Wollstonecraft promoting women's rights was an important thinker in the Enlightenment. Madame de Staël in France. So we start to have, women also be active in the political scene, in the theoretical scene, in the intellectual sphere, in the cultural sphere. So start and say, yeah, why do you treat us as naturally inferior? Why you always treated us as naturally inferior? This is just the lack to education. So she was claiming education for women. Then Voltaire, and then we have the other thing is Montesquieu. Let's go again. Kant, Immanuel Kant. Enlightenment is man's emergence from his self-imposed immaturity. Maturity is the inability to use one understanding without guidance from another. How can we get out from this immaturity? By using reason, by putting reason as the only key to understand reality. How? By using scientific method, science, and by acknowledging that the individual, the single person, is the basis of everything else, is sacred, and we have to grant this individual with natural rights, with unalienable rights, with human rights. Through these three principles, we can see the future as progress, as the effort to get better. Why? Because we want to introduce the concept of critique, to say what we have now is good, but we have to put it in question because we can make it even better. So it's this idea of progress, and individualism. Act in such, this is Kant again, act in such a way that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or another person, not merely as a mean to an end, but always at the same time as an end. So all your knowledge begins with the sense, and then you have to apply reason to these senses. So this is enlightenment. Enlightenment is coming in the 18th century, so we see that modernity starts in 1492, starts at the end of the 15th century. So it takes, from humanism and Renaissance to get to the Enlightenment, it takes more than 2 centuries, more than 200 years for these ideas to become a proper system, a proper intellectual movement, which was the Enlightenment, and which brought about the French Revolution and the American Revolution. So we saw that, for example, Locke was a very important thinker for the Enlightenment. Another thinker that we're going to address today is Montesquieu. Also very important thinker, and also presented by Ivana in the first part. Ivana, please. You have Montesquieu here? Okay, so I'm going to talk to Montesquieu, and Ivana is going to recover tomorrow. Okay? So Montesquieu, Ivana, you make a recover tomorrow. Montesquieu is founding father of constitutionalism. What does it mean, constitutionalism? Is founding father of rational law. What does it mean is that if you apply reason to society, you can, make a general legislation which covers all aspects of humanity and which is understandable. Is, as we already said, is the founding father of modern constitutionalism, is through this principle that he made clear and that is still so valid nowadays, separation of powers. The principle of separation of powers. He's a liberal thinker, because as we said, a thinker focuses on building this positive law, this constitutionalization, these limitations to power, are liberal thinkers. So he's a liberal thinker because he thinks separation of power as a limitation, as a limit to the powers. You want to impose the limitation of the power. How does he do it? Through separation of power. So, constitutionalism, positive law as a science. Positive law as a science. What does it mean? What is positive law? What is positive law? Positive law means that the law is written and is clear and everybody can see it. Because before the Enlightenment, there were so many different systems of legislation. From so many different bodies. You had legislation from the court, from the king, from the monarchy. You have a separate legislation for the aristocracy. You have informal laws and customs and tradition at the local level. You had several different types of legislation. Here, positive law means that the legislation becomes something positive in the sense that it's clear, it's written. It only comes from one source. It only comes from the state. So this is establishing positive law as a science. It only comes from the state. It must be the result of a rational process of juridification, of constitutionalization, of legislation. So he wrote this book, The Spirit of Laws, in 1748, to explain what are the foundations of positive law. It's liberal because it has a liberal concept of freedom. So political freedom, political liberty is limiting political power and dividing political powers among different actors, balancing different political powers. So limiting political powers, dividing political powers among different actors, balancing different political powers. Only through this division and limitation of power we can realize a system in which there is political liberty. So freedom is limiting the powers of the state. Negative freedom, again. This is why Montesquieu is so important for liberal thinking, because he promotes this idea, he develops the ideas of the rule of law, of constitutionalism, of separation of power, of what we call check and balances. So when they wrote the Constitution of the United States of America, they took from John Locke and they took from Montesquieu this system, because the Constitution of the United States of America has a strong system of check and balances in which you have a strong separation between the three powers, but you also have systems that are limiting, that are checking, that each power is kind of controlling the other power. And this is why in each countries of the world we usually have the Supreme Court. With the Supreme Court, what is the Supreme Court? What is the job of the Supreme Court?
Highest court of the country.
Exactly. It checks that the law respects the Constitution. So, what are the three powers of the state that Montesquieu says should be separated? What are the three powers of a state?
Legislative, executive, judicial.
Legislative, executive, and judicial. Okay? What is the most important power of the state?
Legislative.
Legislative. Because legislative power makes the law. Executive execute the law, and judiciary judges if the law was respected or not. So the most important is the legislative power. This is why we consider a regime as democratic when
The legislation is elected by the people.
the legislative power is elected by the people. So the most important is the legislative power, but it also has limitation, because when they do a law, there is a part of the judiciary power, which is the constitutional courts, who check if the laws respect the Constitution. So even on the most important power, you have a limitation. You have the judiciary power who controls that it's doing good, And also, then you have the government is very important. Government is very important, which is the executive power. But then usually, for example, in Italy, you have the fiducia. So means that the parliament, the legislative power, must give the power to the executive, must have the majority in parliament to govern, so that you have a kind of control of the legislative over the executive and so on and so forth. So the three powers must be divided, cannot be in the hand of the same person, and there must be a system of check and balances in which you have three different powers that check over each other. So absolute monarchy was a situation in which all the powers were concentrated in the king. Until we don't know divided these powers into three different bodies, we have despotism. To avoid despotism, we have to make constitutionalism, which is a law, which is a above any other power, and which divide the powers. And then you have to do check and balance to control the other power. So what we have now, Montesquieu invented this principle in this book, The Spirit of Law, 1748, this principle of the separation of power, but it's still nowadays a very, 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 very complex principle. Let's talk about some example. Let's take a country, very peaceful country, okay? Israel. Israel, is at war since 3 years now. Before when they waged war, because there was 7 October attacks on Hamas, made these, terror attacks. Before this, Israel was, had very, very, very internal big tensions because the Supreme Court was inquiring and was accusing the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who was trying to react to these things by reducing the independence of the judiciary power. So there were huge demonstrations, and right now he was at risk to go to jail, and so to avoid this, he was reducing the political power of the judiciary power. So we still have this. If we see, for example, as I said the other time, Russia is a democracy, yes, because the people is electing the Duma, the parliament, the legislative power. But is the real democracy so? Why? Because the executive power is controlling the judiciary power. Example, if you candidate at the election for the opposition in Russia, like Alexei Navalny, you go to jail, because many people of the opposition, they went to jail because the judiciary power was obeying the executive power. The executive power, the president was saying, you put these guys into jail because they're not respecting me, blah, blah, blah. Okay, go to jail, if you're lucky. If you're unlucky, they put polonium into your tea and you're gonna die. So it's, so separation of power is not enough nowadays to consider a democracy because it is elected, the parliament also must consider if the power is separated or not. Here Sunday in Italy we're going to vote for a referendum on the judiciary power. It's a referendum in which they say the judiciary power does not work very well in Italy. This is for sure. If in Italy, if you have the unlucky situation that you get an argument with a policeman, that this policeman is suing you, then you have 3, 5, 4, 6, 7, 8 years of trial, and you will never know when does it end. So it doesn't work very well. So they want to make a reform to make the judiciary system work well. But then this is separating the function of the judge from the function of the prosecutor, and the separation, they say, but then the prosecutor is going to be dependent on the executive power. So the opposition doesn't say, no, we vote no to referendum because it reduces the independence of the judiciary power. So this is just a few examples to make you understand that to be a democracy is not enough that you elect your parliament, but you also must be sure that each power is independent from the other, and especially if the executive power can control the judiciary power, is not a democracy, is not a proper democracy. So Montesquieu invented this and said, you have to separate this power, and you have to establish a check and balance systems in which his power is able to control the other power. How? For example, the Constitutional Court is a part of the judiciary power who controls the legislative power. The legislative power is controlling the executive power because the executive power must have the majority within the parliament, and so on and so forth. So it's this system which we call constitutionalism. Constitutionalism means the rule of law. Law is above any power of the state. The Constitution establish which are the powers of the state, divides them, and puts this system on how they works. Rule of law. Clear and important principle of liberalism. An important principle of liberalism founded by Montesquieu, who is a liberal because he said to be free, we have to limit the powers of the state. Negative freedom, making the political power smaller in order to make freedom bigger, to make liberty bigger. So we have to do a strict separation between legislative, executive, and judicial power, which are the three states. So obviously we know that the legislative power is the most important part of the government. We saw through Rousseau why it is so important. Then, as we say, check and balances system between the three powers. So this is what he said. So, then he observed how it works at this time, and he saw that there was mostly republics, monarchism, and his problem was to get out from despotism, in which you have one person ruling above the law, based on the principle of fear, which was, dominating large empires, but then also at this time was the principle of the absolute monarchies. So next week, Monday, we have no midterm exam, but we are going to recap Montesquieu through Ivana's presentation, and we are going to see the most important political event in modern Europe, the French Revolution, which you also study in the exam of modern history, but we are going to focus not on the history, like when they cut the head of the king, but on the ideas that were promoted by the French Revolution and by the American Revolution. So, as Ivana did today, I encourage you to make presentations if you want on the topic of the next classes. You have time because we will stop classes now, and we will start at the end of April. So let's see how the program is going. So now we're on week 4, right? So then we're gonna have Monday we do America, the French Revolution or the American Revolution. Let's see how my mood is, because they're almost contemporary. So it depends. One day, Monday we do one. Tuesday, midterm exam, 3 hours. We start here, we finish at my office because this class is gonna be busy, and then we do the other revolution. And then from the end of April, we have to go through these other topics until here. So if some of you want to make, oral presentation like Ivana did today, you are most welcome. But what I really care is that if you think for the final conference that you can give a contribution, that would be very, very important. As we said already, we see that all these people are from Europe. We have some things from the American Revolution, and we have this John Rawls philosopher, which are from the United States. So it's Western history of political thought.